Yeah,
in
he
the
did.
closed door
He had
meeting
a Trump
everybody
had
on
an
the left
interpreter.
bitches
Trump. There
about?
was an interpreter with Trump and Putin. There was it was a
Everybody
female
says there
lady,
wasn't.
and
And she was asked to leave the meeting?
was she, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, she was.
I didn't. I mean, I know Putin can speak English, but I didn't think he could speak English
Well,
that
and
well.
even if it wasn't the case, right? You would have to ask yourself why a hot mic picked up the fact that Obama leaned over and whispered, "Hey, just let me get to this re-election. Just give me some time." Essentially, like, why even bother telling him that if he didn't understand basic English?
Well, and then on
Right.
top of that,
What
right after
Obama
that,
famously said, just let me get through this election and all that.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at, like, Reuters says Obama and Putin met for like 4 minutes at the APEC meeting summit about Syria and Ukraine in their last in-person meeting.
when was that? Was that September 2013?
That is a great. Let me see if I can see a date here.
Because I don't think Ukraine would have even been brought up at that point.
2020 November of 2016.
Okay, 2016. I'm talking about September 2013.
Right. Okay. So 3
At the
years
G20.
earlier.
Yeah, because here's the thing. What's funny about the timeline is September 2013. Putin and Obama have a conversation. Nobody speaks on that meeting. Okay, it's about a 30-minute conversation at the G20. Nobody speaks on what took place or what was even talked about. October, November, December. 3 months later, at the end of December 2013, what happened? You've mentioned it like 3 times already. Yeah, the Euromaidan in Ukraine, right?
Right.
Now, who was very instrumental in being involved in that conflict when the dust kind of settled a little bit in like February of 2014?
You mean like
There were
Paul
3 people.
Manafort?
No, I'm being more specific.
I mean, Paul Manafort worked for Viktor Yanukovych. You know that, right?
No, that's fine, but I'm talking about the photo ops with Obama, John McCain, and Joe Biden. All 3 of them over there in Ukraine. Not to mention Victoria Nuland talking about who we wanted to put in place. Okay? I mean, that's the thing. If anybody wants to know what the United States is doing that they shouldn't be talking about, just listen to Victoria Nuland. She tells everything.
Have you read about? I mean, and history being the interesting thing. I mean, have you read where the stories about, like, when after 9/11, and Putin reached out to George W. Bush and said, "I can help you." This is, because they all knew it came basically from Afghanistan, and Bush basically shunned him. And again, Bush, Obama, and I like to reference the movie Charlie Wilson's War. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we shoot ourselves in the foot over and over and over again, regardless of politics in these scenarios. And I think there was a chance to where multiple administrations definitely didn't give Putin and Russia the respect, and they're a very proud society, a very, and I'll leave out the derogatory, because I think Russian people are probably really good people, but they've got some really severe issues, and it makes them do things like what's going on now, and then they get into a conflict like this. But again, you can say what dominoes led to all this happening, and I'd say it's money, I'd say it's power, I'd say it's geopolitical issues, but I think to say, again, saying, "Oh, Trump was so great on this, and Obama was terrible, and Biden's terrible," I think that's kind of arbitrary. I don't think Trump did, and then the only thing Trump did worse was when he started withholding, weapons from Ukraine to defensive weapons, and obviously he got impeached over that. Then that was because again,
What did he do with those defensive weapons?
Occam's razor, Trump being
Hold on,
what's in it
hold
for
on.
me.
Let's be fair. What did he do with those weapons?
What did
Did
who
he give
do?
them to Ukraine? Trump.
I don't. He got impeached because he withheld them, and he was
threatened.
waiting, and he was asking for
He threatened to
the
withhold.
Ukraine. He wanted dirt on Joe Biden, right?
But I understand that he threatened to withhold, but did he withhold them?
Well, and again, it's just like Mike Johnson now. withholding arms cost Ukraine Kharkiv, right, and several cities. So it's not a.
But
It's
let's
just
be
like
clear,
in the
Trump,
it's like in the
Trump didn't
insurance world.
withhold. Trump didn't withhold weapons from Ukraine. Trump was actually one of the first presidents to give weapons to Ukraine.
Trump
So-
was the first president to give weapons to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example of a in the insurance world. When your insurance company, say your house burns down, right?
I remember you. I was about to say, I remember you now, Matt. We've interacted before.
Wait, who said that?
Ladies, man.
Oh, is that
You know,
lady? Oh, sorry.
I was under a different name, but
it
we've
didn't light up.
interacted. Yeah, we've interacted before. I remember you now.
Yeah, I'm in a ugly insurance lawsuit right now, and the problem is what they say, and I'm just using this as an example, is it's not just if the insurance company, it's the statute in my state says they can deny you payment, which is illegal, but delay payment is also illegal because that harms you. And so if your house burns down and they say, and it takes 5 years and they finally say, oh, well, here's your $500,000. Is that fair? Does that still harm you? So, and that's just, so again, saying Trump basically, yeah, he might have given them the weapons, but it was kicking and screaming, extorting them for something to benefit him. Because again, Trump does not go into any detail or any deal not saying what's in it for me, right?
I don't understand why that's a problem. Also, he does that, especially considering Putin. Every dictator does that. Every country does that, not just dictators. France does that. Germany does that. We all do it. The Witham principle
they
is
say what's in it
exactly-
for my country.
No, they definitely do not just do that, but they certainly do take it from a state perspective, sure. But Trump is not just saying what's in it for me. Then he's saying what's in it for America.
No. Trump's saying what's in it for me. Yeah, and Putin does take. Have you ever read Bill Browder? Do you know who he is?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, it's a fascinating. I'm not kidding. Like, look that guy up and read. He was a financier. In Russia, went right after in the 90s, and he knew when Yeltsin was in there, and basically he knew all about. He's the one that probably knows more about Putin's finances than anyone, and but basically what they say, is Putin gets 10% of anything that goes on in Russia, and Browder's the one that he had to leave Russia, and Russia's put out tried to put out red notices through Interpol to get him arrested, and they almost did when he was in. I just saw a thing on him the other night, and but anyway, it's like Putin says what's in it for me, Trump says what's in it for me, Biden, Macron, most leaders say, yeah, when you got your teams at the negotiating table at the G7, it's we're trying to negotiate the best deal for America. That's what they're supposed to do. Trump is fundamentally, and a lot of business people are that way. And this is what you look at the emoluments clause specifically, is what our founders feared, right? Like they've said, I mean, it's laid out chapter and verse. This is what they feared, is the person that can be so swayed by something for personal gain that they would sell out the country. And I don't think we've had anybody, and I'm not saying, obviously politicians are a lot of them are in it for themselves, but nothing to the extent.
I was going to say quite every politician has done that, and you're about to say not to the extent that Trump has, but there's been no gain, right? It's been identified.
That's not true.
Well, but that is true in the extent that you can't dismiss that every other politician has already played this same game.
No. Trump is definitely, with his hotel in D.C. I mean, and I know they're not going to dig into Kushner getting $2 billion from the Saudis, but if that doesn't stink of some kind of crooked deal, I don't know what does, because Kushner was never a guy with no.
Right, but now we're just going to go down the same.
Mitt Romney $2 billion.
We're going to go down
manage
the same rabbit hole, just like Hunter Biden and the 100+ different businesses, and there was no business they were actually running. They weren't providing a service or a product, but they were being paid millions of dollars from other countries. I mean, we can keep going back and forth all day long. I thought the original point of this conversation was to identify how did Putin benefit from having Trump in office, which he didn't. For 4 years,
Right.
he couldn't do anything because Trump stopped him from doing anything he wanted to do.
Right.
And yet we don't give Trump any credit for that because he was somehow Putin's puppet. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make sense. There's no logic there.
Other than Trump saying to hack Hillary's emails, right? And apparently that happened.
And what did that do? What did that do? But like
it gave James Comey enough to open an investigation.
What did it do to the DNC? It aired their dirty laundry. So everybody's so upset that their emails got hacked, but they don't care about the contents. I mean, the contents were the most undemocratic thing you've seen.
Why did Russia? They hacked the RNC too and didn't release it to WikiLeaks. Why is that?
It doesn't really matter.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, maybe there was nothing juicy there, like there was in the DNC.
Occam's razor, right?
Right, like there was nothing juicy there, like there was in the DNC. Maybe, I mean, it was probably a lot of benign emails on like DNC twisting their. We're democratic, but we're the most undemocratic party. I mean,
well, I got some beachfront property to sell you in Arizona, bud.
I was going to say the same. I was going to say the same thing. Man.
Well, hold on, Matt.
Well, I'm not denying what they hacked about the Democrats, even though the private email server thing is a joke because Colin Powell did it, Condoleezza Rice did it.
Also, with regards to the servers, the Russians had been hacking those servers long before Trump said to do it. But nobody wants to talk about that part of the record. They just want to talk about and then Trump said it.
Well,
they had already been trying to hack it. They'd already been doing it.
But Matt, let's think of it this way, right? Because again, you're using Occam's razor, right? What are the things that we hear that are so inherently evil about the Republican Party, right? When it comes to women's reproductive rights, when it comes to gerrymandering or whatever, let's just presume for a moment that all the stuff that these individuals have been saying turned out to be true in this supposed, leak. To Intel Guy's point, what would be the point of releasing that if it just confirms what's already suspected, as opposed to what the DNC is allegedly pandering, but then come to find out is in the complete opposite of what they're preaching to their masses? Right? Like, what would be the point if the evils and the woes of the Republican Party come to fruition? Would anybody really be surprised? No. But if the DNC, to his point, if the DNC is touting this like democracy first principle, and all of a sudden they found bombshell emails that indicate the opposite, why not release that?
Oh man, I mean, you're right. I mean, I'm just saying. I can tell you, like, it doesn't matter what comes out about the Republican Party because no one, it's not going to surprise anyone. I mean, look at Lindsey Graham. He went from saying, all those things about and how many of these guys have said 8 million things about Trump and then they turn into lapdogs. It's because they get a bag in somewhere in a park and it's got all their pictures of what they're doing wrong and it's from Russia. So, I mean, again,
did we just make that up on the fly? Like that was, did we just pull that out of a movie scene? Like what?
Well, I mean, it's a movie scene that's life imitates it because look at all the how many spies have been arrested, like Aldrich Ames
that were on the. You're right, but or how about all the spies that were in the Democratic Party?
What?
Okay. Do we have to go to Eric Swalwell, Feinstein?
Come on, man. Come on. Stay serious. Stay serious.
That is serious.
You're not.
Those were
You're
real
fundamentally
spies.
unserious.
Those were real spies.
Why did Ron Johnson and why were all those Republicans in Russia, in Moscow on July 4th? I mean, again, you're bringing up is hearsay and hyperbole, and
you were bringing it up first.
Well, I mean, if you want to be fundamentally unserious, we can all go down that road, and it goes off the rails. And I think we're trying not to do that.
Okay, but you started with doing that, so I was just pointing out some examples.
Well, I recall back from Matt.
So Matt, to kind of bring this thing home and to kind of go back to what the original topic was, I mean, let's just look at a number of things, okay? And let's just be honest about this. Releasing the sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline did nothing but benefit Russia, okay? Didn't help the United States in any way, so I would say that makes Russia stronger. Releasing the sanctions on the Ayatollah so that Russia could buy drones from Iran, and so that the Ayatollah could buy weapons from Russia,
Wait. When
That
you
made-
say
that made-
when you say Ayatollah, you mean
Excuse me, I misspoke. I'm talking
supposed-
about the banks, the sanction waivers that were delivered to the banks in Iran so that Russia could buy drones from Iran.
right?
Okay, that was under the Biden administration. That strengthened Russia. That did nothing to weaken Russia. Matter of fact, those drones. Let's be honest. What was the number one tool that Russia had to take Crimea? It was the drones that they were using to target Ukrainian operatives in Crimea. All right, those drones came from Iran.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, all I remember about Crimea was a flat out blitz, like Poland and Europe, and they actually did it with helicopters, and
Well, I understand, but the drones,
Ukraine was
the
not
Russian
Ukraine was not
drones-
ready to mount a defense like they
I
were.
understand, but drones, Russia having drones and using drones in Ukraine is a big deal. Okay, And
You're talking about the
reason that they can do
Shahed drones
The
from
reason
Iran.
that they can do that is because we actually released the sanctions on the banks, okay, and gave them the ability to buy drones from Iran.
Are you going? I mean, are you going back to the JPC? What was it called? The Iran nuclear deal?
Nope.
This is outside of that,
These
right?
were sanctions. These were sanctions that were put in place after the nuclear deal fell apart. These were sanctions that Trump put in place that Biden removed.
Hi, can I blow this out to water real quick? Yeah. So Russia Wagner forces shot up and attacked American troops guarding the Syrian oil field. We had to fire back. Okay, so we could talk about all this or this deal that may or may not have happened, but they fired on us. Okay, they fired on us.
I know all about that battle. It was it was Wagner, and the Russians denied it was their troops, and the U.S. Central Command kept calling the Russians and saying, "Do you have anybody in the area?" And they said no, and then Central Command said, release the Hounds and C-130 gunships and F-22s or F-35s, and and they took a beating. So I've read all about that. I get it, and that's I don't know if that really has anything to do with anything. That was just one battle in Syria, but
Anyway, back to the sanctions. Why would we release these sanctions? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. We know what Russia wants to do. Right? I mean, if what you're saying is correct and Russia wants to take all of Ukraine and bring together the Soviet states again, we know what the plan is. So why would we release sanctions that would actually give them more tools at their disposal to accomplish that objective?
No, and your question's exactly right. It's like what and so then what was Putin's ultimate motivation for invading Ukraine? And I mean,
I don't care about the motivation. I care about the tools that were given to him to allow him to invade Ukraine. That's what I'm more worried about, because those were tools that were given to him at the hands of the United States
besides
government.
having the second largest standing army in the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think the Shahed drones, and the funny thing, I mean, I love watching. There's some great content creators on YouTube about what's going on, not just in Ukraine, but military stuff. But it's what I've been, and then there's some great threads on Reddit, and it's like what they're saying is this thing is essentially evolved into a drone war, right? And the Ukrainians, those scrappy bastards, are like MacGyvers with drones with bombs on them, but I think Russia.
Well, they got the Hobby Lobby drones. No, they're using the ones
and they're doing a shitload of damage
you're right.
with those things.
I agree, but again, I'm more focused on these things we had in play to somewhat hinder Russia from being able to do all this stuff, and Iran for that matter.
Right.
Why are we giving these concessions to these two specific countries? I mean, specifically,
I don't know.
these two countries,
was it Merkel?
It doesn't make sense.
Was it Merkel trying to just kind of thinking she could keep Putin at bay, which is kind of what I've read, and they're like, and she's great. She was smart, but she just overestimated her ability to push Putin in the right direction. And I honestly think Putin was going to invade Ukraine no matter what. I think he was dead set on it. I think they thought they could take Ukraine in a matter of days. I think they were overconfident, and I think it's their Vietnam. I think they didn't expect Ukraine to put up a fight, but
it may be our Vietnam.
What's that?
I said it's starting to look like it may become our Vietnam.
Why is that?
Well, if we look at Vietnam, now granted, I
Well,
understand the reason.
MJ, before
Go
you
ahead.
start, Matt, everything
Yeah.
you just said, actually, I agree with. The only difference is that the Biden administration set the conditions for him to give the go ahead, and
No,
that's the
no.
that is the problem.
No.
Is that our current foreign policy is, speak softly or don't speak at all, but carry that big stick. Well, we have to talk to our adversaries and speak loudly and say, "Hey, motherfucker, if you do this, I'm going to punch you really hard." And
Right.
we don't do that though. Trump
No,
would
and
do
I
that.
think
that's-
I would argue the counterpoint to that is Trump set the standard. If you want to argue these kind of, I don't think they're either one of them is exactly right, but that a fractured NATO strengthens Russia. Biden did do a lot to bring us back and bring NATO back together. Now, again, do I think that stop? Obviously, it didn't stop Putin from doing. I think Putin was going to do this. I think if Trump was president, he would have done it, and he would have walked through it because Trump would have withheld every weapon Ukraine needed to defend themselves.
But
And
Trump was the first president to give them weapons. Like that's the
Yeah,
point. Is like
that
Trump
doesn't
was
make any
Trump was
sense.
stopping Putin from doing anything.
Congressionally approved stuff.
No, it doesn't matter whether it was congressionally
doesn't- yeah, it
approved or
doesn't
not.
matter,
I mean,
yeah.
he could have vetoed it at any point. But what he's saying is it makes more sense, okay, for Russia to go in, carry out this operation, take over this territory, and then continue from there, as opposed to take a 4-year break. Why was
right,
the
but when
4-year break
when
there?
did Russia, MJ? When did Russia start amassing troops on Ukraine's border?
1
and
week
this-
after they completed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Is that about when it started?
1 week.
Remember
after
they kept
completed the Nord
amassing
Stream 2
them.
pipeline.
Then they'd kind of pull them back, right?
No, they amassed and amassed and amassed.
They
No,
said it
but
was
And whenever they got
exercises.
Don't you think that
it was under the guise of exercises. We
Right,
all
right.
know that was bullshit. But again, as soon as the Nord Stream 2 was completed, they started putting. That's when our surveillance started noticing the amassing of equipment and everything on the Ukrainian border. And we understand too that, as we've already established, Russia can't move shit very efficiently.
right?
And it takes a little while to build up, right? Which is why we knew what was going on, right? It wasn't just
Right.
you don't put shit right there just for a training exercise.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You've got an active zone there that they've already seized control of, and you also see the failure of the Minsk agreements and how the Minsk agreements are falling apart. And I'm speaking to the Minsk 2 agreements. So we knew what was going on.
And so you say, and I know, like you like to say, like Trump was the first president to give Ukraine weapons. Well, probably because Russia was not amassing troops under any other president, were they?
Well, but see, again, understand what was going on when Trump took office. We knew they had
They
just
had
had
already taken Crimea.
Yeah, they had already
Like-
taken Crimea. They were
Right.
controlling
And
the
the Donbass.
Donbass area. Yeah, so we knew that he wanted to secure that foothold that
Right.
NATO now. All right, now granted, it wasn't under the NATO name, but it was France and Germany that drew the map and said, okay, here's how it's going to be. So essentially NATO. And then, of course, Trump gave Ukraine weapons. Bipartisan sanctions, I might add, on the Nord
Well, and it has to
Stream
be,
2.
the Congress has the power of the purse, so that comes
Absolutely.
from somewhere, right?
Absolutely. And so they were bipartisan. And when I say bipartisan, I
Right.
mean people on both sides agreed Russia does not need that pipeline. And they understood that Russia was reliant on the pipeline that went through Ukraine. The reason they couldn't invade before was because Ukraine would have shut them off. And the only
Right.
other channel that they would have had was the Nord Stream 1. And then they would have been struggling to find another channel to sell
Right.
their natural gas to the European states from. Especially after they had just signed an agreement to supply them with 70% of their natural gas.
Right.
So that's where the whole thing, and the other thing that people don't want to talk about or admit is Russia and Ukraine were actually negotiating to re-up the lease. And sure
Right.
enough, as soon as Putin ordered the completion and knew that Biden wasn't going to enforce the sanctions, guess what happened to those negotiations?
Well,
Putin stopped answering the phone.
Right, right. And you kind of go back to Yanukovych, and, it was always this concept of, was Ukraine looking west or looking east, right? And another thing that Putin did not want on his border is a functioning democracy. because that's just like a female president that terrified him, I think. And this is just my theory, but so it's kind of like Putin wanted. That's why under Yanukovych it was like, oh, yeah, I have access to these markets. It's the pipeline is under our control. Basically, is it crooked? Yeah, Ukraine's got corruption. Is it Nazism? Schmatzism? Sorry. I think that's, not any more than any other country. Russia's got a hell of a lot of that too. So, but it's geopolitics, but it's money and it's one man's ambitions, that are, and these malignant narcissists are just a threat to everybody, and it's scary when this kind of stuff happens. But I just would say, and I think you guys are this has been a damn good conversation, and I actually have to go in a minute, but my argument would be the saying like, does Putin respect one over the other? I don't think you can prove it one way or the other, because I don't think he really cares that much about anybody. He is a wily, cagey guy, and he's out to himself and Russia, number one, and he doesn't care who's in the Oval Office. They're going to try to. They don't want anything good for us at all.
Well, why did he play ball under Trump's administration and not under Biden's?
That's an assertion you make that he played ball, but I don't think he did. It was.
How did he not?
It was they were, again, they were amassing troops. They were
they were not amassing troops.
That didn't happen
under Trump. That was under Biden.
Well, and maybe he was waiting to see if Trump could fully destroy NATO. Because then he knew he'd walk through Ukraine. And
that kind of goes against why the United States was giving Ukraine weapons.
Right. Also, to revisit that real quick. Well,
barely, and then Trump was withholding them.
All Trump did in that whole threat, quote unquote, to NATO was he put teeth on what Obama already wanted them to do. Obama gave a very eloquent speech saying, hey, we're all friends and family, and you guys should pay your fair share kind of comments. And they were like, yeah, okay, buddy, you just keep doing your thing, and we'll keep doing our thing, and everything will be fine. Trump came along and said, hey, you better pay up or else. And then that's when they started making plans to pay up. So, that's what, again, you had given credit to Trump earlier about how he got other NATO countries to pay, quote unquote, their fair share. So
Right. And I'll tell you what, there's a great guy called the Habitual Line Crosser on YouTube that makes some great.
We're mutuals. Yeah.
Do you know him?
We're friends.
Yeah, he's incredible. I love his videos, but he's like, when he does those voices and stuff, but I'll tell you right now, Putin has gotten Poland to up their military budget because of what he's done. And by invading Ukraine, I would argue probably by him invading Ukraine has done even more to get.
Putin read the room very wrong.
Yeah, and Poland is like just we'll buy everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Send it to us.
This is true.
Yeah, and I do agree, and I think we all agree, which it makes perfect sense, right? If this is in fact Putin's narrative and this is what he wants, the mere act of aggression should embolden all these other countries within Europe to take some action and to try to build up just in case, and which is what we're seeing. I know Biden takes credit for that, but let's be honest. Would any of if Putin was still sitting there on the sidelines and the Minsk II agreements were still going on, do you honestly think that these countries would be, matching or giving the contributions that they're giving now? Absolutely not. The only reason they even did it to begin with was because Trump mandated it. Look, you got to pay your fair share. And
but you get into more like too. It's number one, a lot of what we've sent over is old ammo, but it's like nobody but the U.S. can send Patriot missiles that can shoot down their theoretical hypersonics, right? And so it's like, again, it's all based on NATO is doing like Europe is doing, the EU. Those countries are Germany and Rheinmetall, they're cranking out artillery shells as fast as they can. But if Trump, let me throw a scenario out to you. Trump gets in power again next year. The Democrats say they take the House back, and say the Democrats control the Senate still. What happens if they pass a a Ukraine arms funding bill and Trump sits on it again? Because do you think for a second that if he's in power and Congress is saying keep sending them the weapons they need, what do you think Trump's going to do?
Well, Trump sent weapons. Trump threatened to withhold weapons. He never did. He still sent weapons.
Oh, he delayed
But
it. He delayed it.
How long did he delay it?
Long does it again? I told you. Does it matter? Because just like Mike Johnson delayed the latest round, and that cost Ukraine territory.
So I think that Trump would do something similar to what he did with Kim Jong Un, because people don't talk about this approach, but it was the pressure campaign that Trump conducted against North Korea, and basically it entailed us sailing destroyers right up to Pyongyang and flying our F-35s right off their coast. And Trump was quoted as saying, "I need him to punch us in the nose so I can attack him," basically. and in so doing, North Korea ended up coming to the table. I think in the similar
Korea
vein,
didn't come to the table ever.
Well, they absolutely did. And
they're on their. Oh my God, they're.
I was there. I was on the peninsula when all this was happening, so
Okay.
I know exactly what was going on.
Right.
But in a similar vein, I believe that he would probably offer something similar to Putin. He'd probably talk sweet nothings to Putin, say he's a great guy, I'm sure, but he'd also say, "Hey, you got to come to we got to negotiate a deal where maybe you pay for everything you've done, and then maybe you can keep Crimea and the Donbass, and we'll stop here. But you got to give us something huge. Otherwise, I'm going to flood Ukraine with NATO." Like he's going to, he's definitely going to give him some sort of teeth kind of carrot stick deal.
Trump can't enact Article 5, number one, unless a NATO. I'm
not saying that he would be enacting Article 5. I'm saying he would flood Ukraine with assistance more so than we've already kind of hinted at us doing.
How can he do that beyond what Congress authorizes?
It won't matter. That won't matter. You know Trump. He's going to say something that he maybe can or can't deliver. Just like with the
It'll be the biggest and the best.
It'll be just like repealing Obamacare. He needed Republicans on board with that. He never could get them on board with it. So that's his approach to deal making. Is he tries to influence people to do those things.
Yeah. Well,
and so I think that's what he would probably do with Putin.
It'll be what's in it for him too. I promise you.
Well, all Trump
because
did,
he doesn't want to look weak. Trump loves a strong position. He loves a strong position.
Right.
How about this? What do y'all think about? Is it possible? Is it possible that behind the scenes, Trump right now could already be working and trying to put together a peace deal on this whole thing? Given that Viktor Orban's actually meeting
essentially
with Trump.
that amounts to treason, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's trying to do it.
It would only be treason. It would only be treason if you're trying to harm the United States.
Yeah, well, again, it's him cutting a deal that benefits him behind the scenes is
no.
I don't know what other.
Said. That's not what I
don't
said.
think that's
not what I said.
His oath to the Constitution doesn't end when he leaves office. So not that he ever held it. But
is we already know that NATO members are reaching out to Trump's advisor or Trump's team. Okay. We know that Viktor Orban was going to Mar-a-Lago and was going to meet with Trump.
What?
Now, this is all.
My God.
Do you not believe me? I mean,
I know Viktor Orban, and I know who he is, right?
Yeah. What's wrong with him? Is he not
the
in NATO?
current president of the EU?
My good God! Oh,
What's wrong with him?
yeah. Well, all right, man. That's a good way. That's a good.
Tell me what's wrong.
MJ, I appreciate it, MJ, but I honestly I gotta go. I really got to go walk my dog. He's going to be a mess if he doesn't go take a shit.
Hold on. Was he not in Washington, D.C. for the NATO summit?
Yep. So I honestly I can't do it. I've done all I can. I've done all I can do. If you
about how great all the NATO leaders are, I mean,
if you say what's wrong with Viktor Orban, that's all. I mean, I got to end it there, man.
For you to tell me.
No, I know, I can't answer that for you because if you can't see that, then I'm all out of.
No, I want you to educate me.
I can't do it. I am not anywhere near smart enough to do that.
This is where everybody runs. He's okay when Biden says it.
Yeah,
but just because he's meeting with Trump, he's all of a sudden this conspiracy guy that is doing Putin's begging. But yet this guy's he's in the NATO summit. He was there all week in Washington, D.C., meeting with Joe Biden. Joe Biden's talking about how great NATO is.
Yep.
Do we have a rogue NATO member?
Yeah,
because he's not the only one. I'm asking.
Yeah, no, all right, guys, have a good night, everybody. I really appreciate the conversation. I do, and I hope to see you soon. Everybody, take care. Have a great night. Thank you, guys.
Good
Thanks
talking.
for coming in.
Can you not
I
answer the
hope you
question?
come back. I hope you come back again, and we can hopefully finish where that left
Sharky.
off.